Easy now.
Easy now. How's it going, buddy?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad.
So, welcome back to the Drive Talk podcast, everyone, powered by Michelin. It's another online recording because we've got loads of things we want to get off our chest about cheap cars or not cheap cars, depending on which way you look.
I'd normally correct you and say affordable cars, but we are going to be talking about cheap cars in every
Because
sense.
affordable is isn't that kind of dependent upon on how much money you have?
Yes.
I don't know really, because we always get. I don't know about you, but whenever I film with a car, that is, especially actually interesting today. Anything north of £40,000 in the UK, I'm starting to get lots and lots more comments about how expensive the car is because you've got the luxury car tax that kicks in at £40,000, and that number it's been £40,000 for a good while, and it probably needs to change really because, like lots of things in life, the cost of cars has gone up, but that threshold hasn't changed really. So it's not really luxury cars anymore. It's just like most of them.
Yeah, I'm sure it was like 2018 or 19 when that kicked in, which
Yeah.
doesn't sound like that long ago, but it's actually 6 or 7 years ago now, which is crazy. But like
Oh,
you
yeah.
said, yeah, 40 grand.
And,
What does 40 grand buy you? Well,
and I can remember, I can remember at the time I was looking at potentially getting when I got my Boxster, I was looking at maybe getting an Audi RS3, and I can remember that was going to be like mid 40s, I think. And it was like, oh my God, how expensive that? Well, look at how much Audi RS3s are now, and look what you have to spend 44,000 pounds. I'm going to buy you a great deal new
no,
at the
no.
moment, which is really sad. So we thought we would have a chat about this because I think there's lots and lots to unpack. And one of the things that we're starting to see, and I guess we've seen it for a while, I'm going to call them budget brands or value brands in cars. And I guess straight away I'm thinking about the likes of Skoda, the likes of Dacia, who've been around a while and they've always made cars that are, and I guess actually you could, if you went back maybe 5 years, maybe a little bit more than that, you'd probably include people like Kia and Hyundai in there as well. And they made like the lower end cars, and then you had your premium cars, which is your BMWs and your Audis and your Mercedes and Jaguar and that kind of thing. A couple of things have happened. Firstly, a few of those, in inverted commas, budget brands aren't budget brands anymore because they make really good cars. Skoda, Kia, Hyundai. But they've been kind of replaced by a whole raft of new budget manufacturers, most of which are new to the market probably only in the last couple of years, and almost all of them come from China.
Yes. Yeah, so we thought it would be a good idea to have a look at comparing a couple of price brackets with a Chinese car and a European or similar equivalent, seeing if
Yeah.
we can even compare it. Because as you say, yeah, the entry level average Chinese, and I was going to say electric car, but it doesn't even have to be electric car now.
No.
They're starting to produce hybrids and combustion engine and only cars, which is interesting because I wonder if that was the plan originally, but who knows? But yeah,
Controversial.
should we start? Let's start. And I'm hoping we're not going to get people in the comments going, oh, well, that's just an expensive, unrealistic price. Because I think in 2025, for a brand new car, I think starting at, let's say, 15 grand, which is what's the MG you can get for you're an MG expert. I know you're an MG
An expert.
closet lover.
I think actually, so something like an MG4, I think they're a
Yeah.
little bit more than that. They'll be early 20s, I think.
Okay.
But you could get
What about an MG3?
you could get that, or something like, if it was an electric car from China, you get something like actually, the car that springs to mind isn't Chinese. It's from Dacia. It's the Dacia Spring, because I think that is the cheapest electric car currently on sale in the UK. Dacia
Right.
Spring.
Okay.
And they're like 14 grand, I think. And it's
Right.
I guess we need to add a couple of things, don't we? Because we've been looking at this morning, and it's actually quite tricky working out how expensive a car is nowadays, because all the brands will quote the from price, which will be your boggo spec car with nothing on it at all, which is normally not that desirable. And then whether that includes all the kind of taxes that you need to put the car on the road and so on is a bit tricky. So some of these prices will be kind of approximate, averagey type price, I think. But yeah, around
Yeah, the
about 14
pricing's
grand.
pricing's crazy because actually, so for instance, using BMW website and configurator, you'd always have the on the road retail price down the bottom right for years and years. And then
Yeah.
recently, that price has now changed to before on the road costs. So before
Oh.
things like road fund license and all the rest of it. But then I've just checked this second, and now it's back to on the road price. So they've changed it again, thankfully, because it was a bit misleading before, especially when you factor in, like, let's say an M car. I think the first year road fund license on an M car, you're talking thousands of pounds now. So
Yeah.
that difference was quite substantial. But it looks like they've
Yeah.
reintroduced. Maybe they were listening to our conversation earlier on, and they've
Maybe all
reintroduced
your
it.
phone was listening. Maybe.
Ah,
Yeah, it could
quite
be.
possibly. Yeah.
But yeah, no, MG3, 14 grand, or from
Oh, there you
around
go.
14 grand.
Yeah, that.
And I guess the other thing we were going to, with this, because again, I'm sure some people are bound to put in the comments that, well, why would you just not buy a used car? And I think that's probably a separate pod, actually, a separate discussion to compare used cars, because then you've got all the factors of things like depreciation and all of that kind of stuff. So we're to try and keep the waters as clean as possible. We're just talking about brand new cars
Yeah.
to do some comparisons.
Yeah, it's
Um,
always a thing that you and I'm sure, get lots of comments around. And even when we were talking in our group chat earlier on with Patrick, we're
yeah,
looking at 15 grand. And we all know there are thousands of used cars out there that are
yeah,
15 grand and arguably better value. But someone looking at buying a brand new car with warranty on new car finance or whatever it might be is not probably looking at buying a 10-year-old entry level or 20-year-old entry level KN, for instance.
no,
Like, it's just
no.
not the same customer.
And
But
I
there's
think
a podcast in that.
that there is, yeah. But I think that the important, or the reason why looking at new cars is so important, and it's that the one of the challenges facing the auto industry, and I'm going to say in Europe, but I guess it would probably be the same in America, although that's they've got some things going on there which are quite interesting at the moment, is that new car sales are fundamental to the long-term survival of all of these various car brands we have. And the challenge is, if you go back 5 or 10 years, Chinese, they didn't make cars really, not for the export market. They were clearly within China there were Chinese brands. But now I pulled up I think I sent it through to you earlier on, the top 30 or the global car production last year. Actually, this is 2023. Beg your pardon. Was 93.5 million cars. China made 32.3% of those cars. And if you
Crazy.
looked at the number for last year, it would be not that dissimilar. So, and I think the challenge is that they're coming in and they're disrupting the market so much. And in a world where we're all, I hate the word cost of living crisis. It does my head in when people use that. But where we're all kind of, prices are going up and utilities are going up and wages haven't really moved for probably the last 5, 10, 15 years. Everyone's tightening their belts a little bit. And therefore, if you are looking at buying a new car, if you can buy a car that gets you from A to B and has a load of technology on it that's okay and is significantly cheaper than your normal car brand, then people are maybe prepared to put the brand to one side. The brand snob in them is maybe prepared to go, do you know what? Actually, I've not got an Audi parked outside. I've got an MG. It's okay because it was half the price.
Yeah. I think especially, and again, this is not me with my dislike EV cap on, but I think especially with electric cars, where that last bit of soul has been arguably removed from the product, and now even the petrol head in us is just like, I would have preferred it to have been a German product, but it's not. It's going to save us a lot of money. That's the win.
Yeah. The bit I always try and remember is, and this is the challenge of being like me and you and Pat, is we love cars. We wouldn't be doing this job if we didn't love cars. And cars, I love everything about them. And therefore, when I'm buying a car, there's a whole bunch of extra things that I'm looking for in a car. Whether that's
GTS badges.
emotion, a GTS badge, somewhere to put my advanced driving stickers on the windscreen, those types of things. Enough space in the boot to put my clown shoes. These are important factors, okay? But to a lot of people, they don't give a monkeys about all of that. It's how much is it going to cost? How much does it cost to run? Does it get me from A to B? Is it cheap to insure or cheap to keep on the road? I don't care what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, driver engagement, front end turn in. They don't care about any of that. Yeah. And that's a massive market. There's a huge amount of buyers. And that's, for me, the danger that the traditional brands have, is that they've lived on and basically relied on their brand and their customer brand loyalty for so long that I think they're starting to be bitten in the arse by it. Because, if you're going to tell me I can buy, an MG for £25,000, but the equivalent size and segment car from BMW, Audi, or Mercedes is £60,000, well, I know where my money's going.
Yeah, that differential now is so much bigger. You talked earlier on about when like Hyundai and Kia sort of started coming on strong. Back then, let's say 15 years ago, the differential between one of those and a German brand was substantial, but it wasn't massive. So it was maybe 15-20% difference. So you'd look at it and go, oh no, I still can afford and justify to have my BMW, for instance. I don't want that car, the plastics and stuff. And then they've bridged that gap over the years, but also that price differential has come down now. Like a nicely spec Hyundai is probably closer to a lower spec BM. But then you suddenly got these Chinese boxers on wheels that that are substantially cheap. What I'm saying, but that you can't avoid. You can't just go, oh, I'm not having that. I mean, I would, because but you can't. You can't afford. Yeah, you can't miss out.
No, I mean, I guess we started at 15 grand, right? So we're like MG3, Dacia Spring, even petrol cars. You could look at something like a Kia Picanto. They're all quite small city runaround cars. So should we up the budget a little bit? Yeah. So maybe we'll get a slightly bigger car and say, 30K?
Okay.
Because for 30K... exactly. So for MG,
I'm sure I've seen some sponsored videos recently for around the 30 grand mark.
Well, Joe Achilles, you are very naughty. Should we talk about that though?
Yes. Yeah.
I can't believe we're going to do this. That's one of the things that inspired us to do this podcast, was the very recent social media activity regarding a Chinese brand. And actually, it wasn't an EV. It was a plug-in hybrid.
Yeah.
But if I'm sure many of the people who watch or listen to this podcast or follow our channels also are aware of JM on Cars, James Martin, who's a friend of both of ours, he put out a video about the Jaecoo 7 launch. Now, we're not wanting to kind of go in deep on that too much, but one of the things that came out of that, when you look at that car in terms of size and spec, is the price point is remarkable.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know whether we could say the car is remarkable, although we might ask Pat, because he actually went in one. But that is a really interesting car, but that campaign was quite interesting as well. Go on, Joe. I know you're dying to
Yeah.
say something.
No.
You've been talking about this forever.
Oh no, it's just interesting because the campaign. Listen, we're not going to throw anyone under the bus or say anything too controversial, but I think we when we saw the JM's video, both of us, because we both also got very similar emails.
We both got invited, and we both turned it down.
For that campaign, and listen, at the end of the day, we're all here to make money. We all have to survive and do that in the best way we see fit and possible. And accepting a campaign is your own choice, and that's all it came down to. And I think I find JM's videos on the whole very interesting. He breaks everything down very clearly. But I have to say, when I saw the email that I received, which was very similar almost to the word of what JM got, straight away I perceived that as it's a campaign, and they're kind of fishing and asking what I would charge for those services. I didn't read it like JM did, in the sense that it's a press launch, but it's not a press launch, and they might be paying me to say things, whatever. So I think that's the only bit where I sort of stand on the fence. And also, I'd just like to point out, and I'm not going to disclose any figures, but it is quite funny seeing the internet fall apart, thinking that some of the people that did that campaign did it for $5,000. I'll tell you now, all of those guys and girls that did that would not have got out of bed for $5,000. So I kind of sat there thinking, I wish they knew how much they were actually being paid.
Yeah, where that number came from though was in that email. It said that there was a $5,000 budget to push the video, not $5,000 to pay the talent for being on the video.
No, exactly.
So,
and that's
where
that
number came from. It's like, forget it.
Yeah, and the $5,000 pushing it, and you'll see that. So again, I'm not going to name any names, but all their videos went out. Well, 3 of the videos I was watching them all went out. They all got next to no views, and then miraculously, they all suddenly gained 10,000 views within a couple of hours, and then didn't get any views after that. That's where that money's gone. So you can boost Instagram stuff. I didn't actually know you could boost YouTube things until we'd all discussed it, and we're watching intently at the views and seeing these videos that were completely dead. And I mean, this is a whole nother conversation, because you just think, how does that make any sense that a brand pays someone to produce a video, the video gets absolutely no traction and no views, and then the brand puts money behind it that then gets it views, but those views don't engage any likes or comments, because as far as I'm concerned, they're not. Who are these people that they're paying to watch? No idea. They're just metrics. They're like numbers. But then, so you just think, how much did that campaign cost, and how many real eyes did it get on them? Well, actually, we're talking about it. JM's talking about it. The internet. Yeah. It's a bit like BMW and their styling, But anyway, we're going a bit off tangent. But I think, what the internet needs to understand is, we're all here to make a living, and we all have to. Some people just will literally do anything and sell themselves to the devil in order to make a bit of extra cash. We all know who they are, and that's the way they do things. And fair play, they earn a lot more money than I do probably by doing it that way. Others are a lot more picky. We're both, or all 3 of us, are very lucky that we work with brands like Michelin, because it's not like selling ice to the Eskimos. It's it's a fantastic brand. Whether we're involved with them or not, we're going to be talking about them. So we're very fortunate to have someone like Michelin back in the podcast and backing us individually. But anyway, I'm so glad that I didn't do that. I mean, I wouldn't have done it anyway. And I ironically openly spoke about that campaign on my Instagram page way before JM put his video out, just saying I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't promote, not necessarily just because it's a Chinese brand, but I just wouldn't promote a brand or a car or something that I've got absolutely no understanding about. Like, I'm not just going to go and say it's the best thing in the world when I've got no idea about that. So It's a fine line, but bottom line is when you look at what you get car wise for the
Yeah,
money, the package. I mean,
it's
again, it's a lot, isn't it?
yeah. And I guess the last bit to add before we talk about the car is, to some extent, I mean, we've mentioned this before on the pod over the last couple of years of brands paying people to do reviews or to create content. And one of the challenges with these new brands coming to market, firstly, there are so many of them, and they're all coming to market at the same time, and they're all trying to get cut through. They're all trying to build a brand recognition because no one's ever heard of them before.
Yeah,
So the only way they at the moment looks like they want to do that is to pay people to attend events, to drive the cars, to get content out there. And that's fine because it gets eyeballs. My worry with that is, and I would never, ever, ever call myself a journalist, but I am going to use the word journalistic integrity, in that when you go to a launch, when you go to drive a car for the first time, or you get a press car, for me, the fundamental part of that, and plenty of people on the internet don't believe this is the case, but I can assure you it is. I have to be free to say what I want about the car, good or bad. And I think the vast majority of traditional manufacturer press teams are only upset if you say things that are factually incorrect. If it's
yeah,
an opinion, if you say, I don't like the styling of this car, or this MMI is rubbish, or these seats aren't very comfortable, or this gearbox is rubbish, that's fine. That's the whole point.
yeah,
And I can say that because I'm not being paid. As soon as I accept some money to go on a review, that for me, and I may well still be able to say what I want, but it's muddied the water, and that's the bit I find challenging.
yeah,
So I will happily work with a brand and maybe present videos for their social channels. That's completely different. They're paying me to present or to be I hate the term, but to be the talent on a video, and that's fine. But if it's going out on my channel, and I need to control that a little bit more, and that's the bit I'm not so comfortable with. And they are, I'm going to say Chinese ones because it's mainly the Chinese brands that are doing it, not exclusively. We know a couple that do it as well, and I have a problem with that.
yeah,
But let's get back to Jaecoo 7.
yeah,
I don't know if you agree. I presume
yeah.
you know that.
No, I totally agree. It's a very, I think the problem is it does, and I think JM touched on this in his video. It really blurs the lines. Nobody really knows what they're watching, but then it all goes back to, and I think the more and the longer I've been in this game, and the more I understand the way everything works. You might pick up your copy of, I'm not going to name any names, but your traditional car magazine and think, oh, well, I'm going to get an honest opinion from a journalist who's whatever. But then you look and at the back of the magazine, there's maybe 5 adverts from that manufacturer who have provided that press car. So they're funding that magazine. And then you start to read between the lines, and there's a few not so honest reviews and stuff, that things that go out that, or like car awards, and it's kind of happening everywhere, but it's like, look over here while we look over here while we're putting in money over here. Or it's I think it's always been happening, but in a less obvious way. The funding's been
Yeah,
coming in an indirect way, but
yeah,
now, yeah, like you said, the Chinese brands, they've got so much money, they could afford to do this. And like I said, it's, if anything, it's got us all talking about the Jaecoo J7 or
Jaecoo
the
7,
J,
Jaecoo 7.
yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
that one.
It's got us all talking about it. So it's a bit like the Jaguar thing, but in a less, um, in a in a more polite way, I'd say, than the Jaguar camera. Talking of Jaguar, they're doing really well. I've been keeping an eye on their socials because
Oh, good.
obviously I'm a big fan of their rebrand, and
Yeah.
I was on
Is it doing
Social
well? Is it
Blade the other
growing?
day. Yeah, so their Instagram page, which they claim was completely organic, I think they're losing on average about 25,000 followers a day. So
Oh, it's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
what was it? Yeah, oh, maybe it's 100,000 a month or something. Whatever, it's in the red quite significantly. So they're obviously doing pretty well. I could see they're slowly sifting out their potential customers for when their cars do finally become available. Which, by the looks of things, they probably won't even be able to sell out in the States. The timing for Jaguar, it just gets better. I mean, worse. Sorry, Jaguar. Anyway, we just got on
So
a tangent again.
yeah. So so Jaecoo 7.
Yes.
The thing I find amazing about that car, right, is because that's. I mean, you have to be a bit careful. It's like what I said earlier on about prices being quoted from a certain price.
Yeah.
But a decently spec'd one of them, it's a big car. It's got a hybrid engine. It's got massive amounts of range. The guys drove from London to Inverness or whatever it was. And it's sub 40K.
Yep. Yep.
So it doesn't hit the luxury car tax bracket. And for me, that car, size-wise, format-wise, function-wise, that's going up against JLR product. It's going up against, Range Rover Sport type cars, I would guess.
No, see, this is where I know you have, and this is very unusual for you, Ped, because you're normally the one that does his homework, and I'm normally the naughty boy. I'm normally the naughty boy.
Oh no,
that
it's
doesn't.
Evoque. Is it Evoque?
Yeah. Well, see, this is the thing. It looks big in pictures, and when you watch some of those videos that went out, the car looks a lot smaller than you think. And then you look at its dimensions, and actually it's BMW X1, Volkswagen Tiguan. It's that size. Yeah, it's a lot.
I thought it looks massive.
It looks the dimensions of it make it look like a big American sort of Jeep, like a Grand Cherokee or something. But actually, it's not. It's exactly 4.5 meters long. In fact, it's actually slightly shorter in length than the Tiguan. So that just gives you an idea of actually it is a small SUV.
So what's a decent spec Tiguan then? If you go the Tiguan hybrid.
Yeah, a Tiguan hybrid, I think they're about 30. No, about 33, 34 grand before. Okay. But being a Volkswagen or German product, that's a base price. And I think once you start throwing some options on there, you're going to be looking at 40 grand. So there's still going to be, I would say, 6 to 7 grand of difference between the two, which is substantial, but it's not massive. It's not like, not like I thought it would be in my head. And I couldn't find any finance examples per se. Maybe Patrick can do that in the background while we're talking. But it would be interesting to see, because surely a 3-year-old
do you want to know something, mate?
You've done that.
A Tiguan R-Line.
Yeah. Oh, have I got it completely wrong?
48.
Oh, yeah, but that's an R-Line. Okay. Is that an R-Line?
Yeah. That's a plug-in hybrid. Tiguan R-Line. How much is the Tiguan hybrid? 42.7 to 48, depending on.
Wow. Okay. All right. So then that is substantial. So it's at least 10 grand more spec for spec. Yeah. But what I was saying was, the 3-year finance, like what price do you put on a 3-year-old Jaecoo J7? Like, has it completely devalued?
Have a negative number at the end.
Yeah. But then it might not be that bad, because at 35 grand, you can't fall that far. And in 3 years' time, even that car is going to be 40 grand, meaning it's going to bring prices up. So who knows? It is I guess it's all a bit of an unknown. Oh, Pat, here goes Pat. 42 to
48 for the hybrid, yeah.
Okay. Well, finance here. Sorry, listeners.
So here's a question then, and it's a rhetorical question more than anything. Is how come they're so cheap? If it's possible to make a car for that money, why aren't your VWs and your BMWs and your Audis making cars that money? And that's when it comes to maybe a bit of hearsay, but the subsidies that a lot of these Chinese manufacturers get, and if you actually look at who some of those manufacturers are owned by, there are a couple of them actually owned by the Chinese government, and they've got subsidies at the manufacturer. They've developed a whole bunch of technology in China. We could argue how that's been done with IP theft and all that kind of stuff back in the day. Potentially cheaper labor rates. So they've got a lot of things working in their favor to make these cars as cheaply as they are.
Much cheaper electricity, which is a massive factor for any manufacturing process, especially car building.
Coal-fired.
Yeah, well, the Chinese. The Chinese have got it right. They're building coal stations. Yeah, they're selling us electric cars, and I think they're building. Is it every week or every month? They're building on average at the moment 2 coal power stations every couple of weeks. That just gives you an idea how big China is. But yeah, they're powered by coal, selling us electric cars. But yeah, I think when you factor all those things in, look, from the time when we were kids, even you, Ped, all those years ago, when before the car was invented, before the Model T was even a thing, even back then, everything you owned or picked up, especially gadget-wise or around the house, it's always been made in China or made in Taiwan. So they've always been the country that's produced most of the stuff that we've got, like good value stuff, right? You'd always be like, oh wait, how could that be that price? It must be made in it's made in China. Whereas, and I guess we're just seeing that in the cars now. But I think what's so interesting about the Jaecoo 7 is that makes more sense with EVs, Chinese EVs, because we know about the fact that they own most of the cobalt mines and they produce most of the batteries for lots of other manufacturers, including I think some of the
BYD. That was what they did before they made cars. Was they made batteries? They made batteries for loads of people.
Exactly. So all of that kind of doesn't surprise me. But talking of the Jaecoo 7, I mean, on the website there are 2 options. There's a Jaecoo 7 petrol combustion engine only, and there's and that's even less. That's 29.5 grand. Well, there's a Jaecoo 7. I'm not going to call it a bloody super hybrid shitter or whatever it's called. Yeah, plug-in hybrid. No, but it is SHS, isn't it? Super hybrid. I can't remember. Something. But it's a plug-in hybrid. But those 2, as examples, they're not utilizing the battery, the cheap battery technology. They're actually, so that's scary. That's what makes, I think, those 2 really scary. Is, well, wait a second, they're not just producing EVs. They're now producing combustion engine and plug-in hybrids. So when we do eventually see common sense and start buying less and less EVs and going back to the good old days, it doesn't necessarily mean the Chinese car manufacturers are going to go away, because they've already got their claws in and producing products that we can't ignore. So it's an interesting.
I guess, I mean, I can't speak for the Jaecoo because I didn't drive it, but let's up the budget, and I want to talk about a car I have driven and I was quite impressed by. So it's our next. It is a sea creature.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, the company that has all their cars named after sea creatures. So BYD, build your dreams.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about another. Sorry, I thought you meant go on. Yeah.
What were you thinking?
I thought you were going to talk about the Lotus.
No, we're coming to that.
Okay.
I was thinking I'm still sub 50k, mate.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I've jumped. Yeah, go on, carry on.
Yeah. Well, I don't. So next, let's take it up to 50k. And for me, I think this is the BYD Seal, which I had last year, and actually was one of my on an EV side of things, it was quite a good car actually, and they're like 46k.
Yep.
And you look at the equivalent you would get for that size and fit and finish, because I think that for me was the impressive thing. Because a lot of these cars, you think they're going to be crap inside, they're going to be scratchy plastics, they're going to be vinyl seats and horrible switch gear and all that kind of stuff. And the BYD Seal was none of those things. It was the seats were nice and plush. It felt like a luxurious place. It's got a really funky screen that kind of spins whether you want it landscape or portrait. It was an impressive car, and it had a good amount of range. And it was like, styling wise, I had quite a few people come up and say that's quite a good looking car. I've no idea what the long term ownership experience would be like in terms of reliability and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was a good car.
Yeah, well, I have heard lots of good things about the BYD. I mean, some of the naming is just like, oh man, like build your
Dolphin.
dreams. Yeah, but
build your dreams.
like the.
At least they've stopped writing "Build Your Dreams" on the back of the car now. Although I'd probably put that back on in like black lettering. It looked really cool.
Yeah. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's it's proving to be quite good value, but it's definitely not what you dream of. I don't care.
No. So you got the Dolphin, the Atto 3, the Seal, the Sea Lion, which is or Sea Lion 7. That's like their Porsche Macan rival, I guess. And then they do what a snappy name this is, the BYD Seal U DMI Hybrid, which is a plug-in hybrid. Goes back to that again.
So they're doing it as well. Yeah. It's isn't it amazing how quickly they can? I mean, this is the other thing. I think we talked about this on another podcast. How the European brands we've got these sort of 7-year life cycles, and everything's a little bit slow, and I don't know. BMW know exactly what they're bringing out in 2029. And they can't really change that too much even now but where the Chinese are like, oh, EV sales are going down, or maybe, they're still buying hybrids over there, even though it's a small market. I know.
Yeah.
Let's make a hybrid. There you go, boom. And literally, it probably takes the website designer longer to put it on the configurator than it does for them to bloody. Do you know what I mean? No, but it's like crazy, isn't it? It's like blink, and these brands are there. Blink again, and they've now brought out combustion engine alternatives and plug-in hybrids, and you're just like,
all they need now is to get somebody that's actually got eyesight to work in the design department, and they'd be fine.
Yes, naming and design. Yeah.
I mean, so here's the thing. So I don't know if you think about, I date back a little bit longer than you, but new car manufacturers to market wasn't a very common thing at all, really. We've had pretty much the same. We might have had some mergers and acquisitions and companies, so if anything, it's gone the other way. There's fewer manufacturers than there were. But I'm now going to run through a list of Chinese brands that are either now in the UK or coming to the UK, and let's see how many you've heard of.
Right. And the listeners can also add this up and let us know in the comments below. Because
we'll go with the ones we've mentioned already. We've just been talking about BYD. I think most people will know BYD. MG, we've talked about them. Now, I know MG, they bought the name MG, the old Morris garages, and they just celebrated their centenary. So they're kind of playing on the fact they're a brand new car company, but they're using the heritage of a car company that they bought. GWM Aura, and that's Great Wall Motors, is one of China's first car brands, actually, to come into the UK. They had something called an Aura Funky Cat. That's a car.
Sounds like a pair of shoes that you'd buy.
Funky Cat, I know, yeah. Maxus.
I know.
They've got terrible names for their cars. And a MIFA 9 claimed to be the world's first fully electric MPV. 7 seats, 223 miles, and 65 grand.
Wow.
And they've got a T90 EV, which is a pickup truck. The only electric pickup truck currently on offer in the UK, under 50 grand. A Moda.
Oh,
Heard
see,
of
a
those?
Moda are part of Jaecoo, aren't they?
So that's So a Moda, I think it's Jaecoo is from a Moda, I think. Yeah,
Okay,
Jaecoo, or is Jaecoo a
I had
brand
heard
name?
of them.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw them at
Um,
SMMT Day last year. Yeah.
yeah. Now I don't know. This is either it looks like Xpeng, but it's probably Xpeng or something.
Yep.
Xpeng, Xpeng.
Yep.
So their car's called the G6. It doesn't look all that, to be honest.
Okay.
Then a new one, Leap Motor. So they're actually quite highly aligned with Stellantis.
Okay.
So that might be interesting for them, because one of the big challenges, we'll come to this in a minute, is it's all very well and good buying one of these cars, but where's your local dealer and what's your
Yeah.
dealership experience going to be like? So Leap Motor are tied in with Stellantis. Interesting, BYD is an interesting one, because that's are we allowed to say that Berry are going to be doing
Oh
some stuff
yeah.
for them?
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. We've said it.
Yeah. Well, we can
Yeah,
cut it out, can't we?
I think we can. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Tony mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to have, if you live near one of them, it's great.
Yeah.
Skywell. That's another one. That's another manufacturer, by the way.
Yeah.
They make something called the BE11. Oh, but see, sort your naming of your cars out, all these companies, for
Yeah.
goodness sake. And then you've got Airways, Neo, and Seeker. Seeker spelt Zeekr. I mean, it should be an E between the K and the R, surely. But yeah, I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
And then the thing we haven't talked about is all the car companies that are owned by Chinese companies.
Yes.
They're mainly part of the Geely Group. So you can add to that Lotus,
Yeah.
Volvo,
Oh yeah, of course.
Polestar.
Yep.
I mean, Lotus are doing well, aren't they?
Oh my goodness.
So
Yeah.
We've got to show them that Lotus Eletre that you sent me. But we're going massively off piece now. But the Auto Trader price tracker's back on, by the way, which is the best plugin you can have for your browser. And Joe sent over this Lotus Eletre R. That was a bit punchy, wasn't it? It's only been on sale since the 18th of October, and it's dropped 41 grand already.
And it's not the only one. There are so many. Well, the telltale sign is you look at an Electra, it's like a super expensive high-end SUV, right? What they start at about 100 grand. And it's a new product to market. So you would expect that there wouldn't be too many of those available online. Well, you're wrong.
No.
There's 85 of them on Auto Trader alone. And many of them are substantially discounted. They are, I mean, it's a matter of when Lotus or whoever owns them is going to go. You know, they're not.
So
they're not.
Lotus, because people are thinking Lotus. Okay, that's in Norfolk, but it's only the Emira that's made in Norfolk. The Electra and the Emea are made in Wuhan. And we all know. I mean, it should be set for global domination, because normally things that come out of Wuhan have a fairly big global dominance, don't they? But it's not happening for that one.
The Emea is even uglier. Oh, the Emea! I've not even seen that. It's just awful.
It's basically the same car, but a saloon.
Oh my god! And I'm sorry, but at least this one's got some Michelin tires on it.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, but in a day and age where expensive saloons, we already know. Look at things like the Taycan and stuff. People want SUVs, right, of that sort of end of the market. So if the big one, the Whale or whatever it's called, the Electra is not selling, then you can't then launch the saloon version and expect that to sell, because it's not going to. Because if you don't want the big Whale, you're not going to get the saloon.
I will.
I know you're going to say it's a good car.
No, I'm going to defend it a little bit, because I've driven one, and I don't think you have.
No,
I've driven the R.
I wouldn't be seen dead in it.
No, I didn't think you would. It is a remarkable car. I mean, firstly, I drove the R, which is the top power, top spec one. That's got 900 horsepower, right?
And it needs every single
And
one
like
because it
11,
weighs 900 tons.
No, it's 2.6 tons, I think.
Oh, is that M5 weight?
So it's lighter than your new car, yeah. So it's lighter than an M5. But I mean, its performance is unbelievable. In a straight line, it's utterly ridiculous. It's so quick. When you get to a corner, it does handle really, really well. I don't know how they mask its weight. And it does handle well, but like all of these things, and I've said it a million times, it handles really, really well right up until the point it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then you're going so fast, you basically head to the scene of the nearest accident. Once it goes, it's like, but yeah, no. So it is, and it has some really funky things on it, some cool design cues and all that kind of stuff. There's an amazing use of aero and all that. So I get all of that. I went to the launch and found it really interesting. I don't think it's doing for Lotus what they need it to do.
No.
Unfortunately. But that, and I think part of its problem, and looking at the comments when I reviewed it, is the fact that everyone knows that it's Chinese and it's made in China. And by the way, we should probably add here, we are not China bashing or anything, but there is there are issues that people have that are really challenging. My favorite, probably the most replied comment I get on my channel is whenever I review something that's from China, someone will say, it's made in China. My standard reply is, so the smartphone that you made that comment on, or the laptop, where's that made exactly? Because if it's an iPhone, guess what, people? These are made in China. The thing that I've noticed we're getting towards the end of our hour, and maybe this is a good place to finish. The thing that I think will be interesting over the next 12 to 18 months is a lot of these cars are made in China. There's a lot of subsidies going into them which help them to bring the cost of production down. And we've talked about raw materials and labor and all those types of things. So when you look at the price of something like a BYD in China, they're like literally 20 grand, 25 grand. They're half the price. Is the new tariffs that are being placed on Chinese goods by the new government in America, and whether or not that is something that the EU decide to do. I think we've mentioned this before. The challenge the EU have, because I think they've got slightly more brains than the president of the US at the moment, is they know that the Chinese market's really important to them. So if they place too big a tariff on imports from China, then China will just reciprocate and do the same thing, and it's like a race to the bottom then. But I think that may well affect things to see what those tariffs do.
Yeah.
Because unlike the PR coming out of the States, tariffs are not paid by the Chinese. Everybody, they'll be paid by the people buying the products that are being imported. So the products will go up in price. So it may well be that we see the market change a little bit this year with those products going up in price because they've got tariffs placed on them. I don't know. I'm not an economist, but I think
it is. I mean, it's interesting, and I mean, whichever way you look at it, I think also if our politicians and our governments really want the world to be a cleaner place, and they really are doing this for the right reasons, then allowing us to buy Chinese cars, for instance, willy-nilly, and allowing the Chinese car industry to take over the European way of making cars, which, at least on paper, looks a lot cleaner. When you factor in China is coal-powered and all the rest of it, I mean, that's a whole different subject in itself, I know, but it kind of does need to be addressed in the sense that it's like, well, you're forcing all of us to do these things, but actually I'm now buying a Chinese car that's built in a country who doesn't evidently seem to care too much about, or isn't going down the same. It just when you start picking it apart, you're like, it doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah.
And I think I really hope that our industry. I think something needs to be put in place to protect. I say our industries. We haven't got really anything left to, at least in mass sales over here in the UK. But
Well,
I include
Lotus. Oh no, they're quite
Lotus,
Chinese.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
But I cater them. We've got some small
Ariel.
aerial, exactly. Some we've got some genius, amazing manufacturers, but in such small volumes. But when I say our, I include I mean Germany, and
We've got
I want to.
we got Jaguar, mate. Come on.
Oh
Oh no,
yes,
they're
yeah,
Indian,
they're
aren't they?
Tata, yeah.
Yeah.
Copy nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want these German, powerhouses to survive. I want them to. I want to
Yeah.
continue. I want to. When I die and whatever, I want them to still be around. I think it's really important for all of us that they've always led the way. I think
Well, I
sometimes
mean,
it's good that they.
if BMW went pop, you'd have no cars to review, mate, because that's all you do.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. What would I do? No, I think they all need a good kick up their asses, because I think they've all dropped the ball recently. They've all panicked, copied other things, copied Tesla, They've all
Yeah.
done some really sporadic panic moves, which has surprised me. And it's been interesting seeing them all doing it and panicking and doing this and doing that and saying one more thing. Like you look at Porsche, and their recent news. I know Seeing Through Glass or Behind the Glass talked about it on a podcast a while ago, and then someone else called him out for providing the wrong information. But actually, although I don't think they're going to put an engine inside a Taycan, because I can't imagine, thinking about it, the Taycan's probably not designed at all to have a traditional
No.
combustion engine. But things like the electric or the
The
Macan
Macan, maybe.
EV, yeah, I mean, they'll find a way because they're Porsche, and I think they know that they at least have to have that ready or start working on it in the background,
Yeah.
because the way things are at the moment, uh, they need to adapt, just like we've been talking about with the Chinese, how they've adapted. They've gone from full EV, suddenly they're giving us, they're able to do that. So we hope that Porsche and brands like that are able to continue to survive and thrive, and in the next generation 911 they give us back the starter knob.
Yeah, we
That's
don't care
that's
about the engine. We just want a starter
yeah,
knob and an analog rev counter.
and that's when
Not
we'll
hard.
know when Porsche profits are back where they should be and they're selling
Yeah.
cars again. We'll get the analog rev counter back, and
I mean,
classic.
I think just to wrap up, I think the price inflation, and I know there's lots of reasons for it, I'm sure, it just seems to have got out of hand. And I think some brands need to, I go back to, if Dacia can make a quality car like the Duster for the price that they do, there is no reason why other brands can't do it. And the reason they make it or they're able to make it at that price, is because their fundamental goal is to make affordable cars. And they start with the budget and work backwards from there. And that, it's just they don't just chuck stuff. We talked about when we had Steve Saxty on, we talked about this. But they're able to do it, and they, a Dacia, modern day Dacia, Duster, Jogger, Bigster. I know they've got stupid names, Bigster particularly.
Yeah,
it's a remarkably good car for the money.
Yeah.
So it can be
Whereas
done.
BMW,
And I think, and I was going to
whereas
say,
the Germans have done. Oh, sorry. After you.
I was going to say, I think we mentioned this already. I think people are more inclined to downgrade a brand, in inverted commas, to save themselves some money than they were maybe 5 years ago. Because the brands that they're downgrading to, when I was growing up, you downgraded to like a Lada or a Skoda or a Proton, and they were shit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the
really bad. Yeah, remember that? Proton Persona.
Where was that? Was that Taiwanese or?
I'm not sure. I can't remember, actually. Oh,
Yeah, what a
Patrick's typing.
car.
Patrick's typing. Quick, where's Proton come from, Pat? But yeah, they were just dire. But now
Yeah.
you look at even the entry level stuff. It's great.
Oh, Malaysia. It's
Malaysia.
Malaysian.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yes,
yeah,
the
so I think
Proton.
Proton Persona.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. But it was dirt cheap, wasn't it? It was
Oh
like
yeah, it's because it
like
was
you said.
rubbish.
Yeah. But it was if you wanted new and you had very small budget, you could buy
Mm.
that. But yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think Dacia, and ironically, or not ironically, because they are the same group, the Renault 5 we talked about recently with Tony, that's Renault as a group are showing
Yeah,
that actually we can compete. We can give you an affordable product, or affordable. 25 grand for a Renault 5 is not cheap, but in
compared to
today's
40
world,
grand for a Clio or a Corsa, a
yes.
Vauxhall Corsa. Sorry,
Oh, yes, exactly. Oh, can you imagine you bought one of those and then
you just
oh
want to. You just want to end your life, and you basically be like, "No, I can't. I'm not going to. I'm going to go and live in a cave. I don't want to. I
yeah,
don't want to see the world anymore."
I don't want to know. Oh, classic.
Oh, dear. Anyway,
Nice.
so
Well, there you
guys,
go.
put in the comments your thoughts. Would you be tempted by one of these new Chinese brands and the cars
Yeah,
that they make? And if so, which one? It'd be great to know or work out what's the most popular of them.
yeah.
What's your favourite Chinese? Before we leave, I'm going to ask you a question now. Favourite Chinese car, Joe?
Uh,
Look at that face. Look
uh,
at that face.
uh, I don't know. I definitely don't have any favourites. Most intrigued now is I would love to actually try a Jaecoo 7. Maybe we should make that our mission this year. We'll
Yeah,
forget the electric cars because they're just. We'll get two of the hybrid. We'll get a BYD, their hybrid,
yeah,
whatever it is, and we'll get a JQ 7 hybrid, and we'll
yeah.
actually go and do a real life test of them,
Okay.
and see, because I can only see at 30 odd grand, 35 grand, I can only actually see some positives coming. This is where they should have gone in the first place, is actually hand the cars out for, if it's not completely shit, then at 35 grand, it could only swing in a positive light, right? It could
Yeah,
only be like, actually, the car kind of does everything for
yeah,
35 grand.
yeah,
So it'd be interesting to see. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm going to go with a JQ7 Super
What?
Hybrid.
Oh, oh,
Whatever the other S
yes,
stands
oh.
for. Super Hybrid system. Yeah. And you? What's your favourite brand?
Oh, mate, MG Cyberster. It's got to be
Oh, you must love. Oh, Ped. I think you should scrap the 911 idea and have one of those.
an MG Cyberster. I wonder
Yeah.
if when I get in my garage, whether the doors will go up, whether they might foul with the walls or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Someone I've been watching, and I'm not going to name and shame because I wouldn't do that, and I think it was an off the record conversation. But someone that we both know relatively well has recently been reviewing one, and yeah, he told me about all the problems he had in the few days he had the car, and it is horrific.
I've
I
heard
mean,
it's not great for a big for anyone who's quite tall. It's not a great car. They're
I
quite
can
small, aren't
imagine. Yeah, because it's quite low, and with the battery pack, the H point's going to be quite high. So, does that mean I can't buy one? What a shame. Gutted.
What's
Oh,
your favourite?
hello.
What's your favourite Chinese car? Petrol pup?
Oh, I don't like any of them. I can't stand the
It's Joe.
naming of them. Yeah.
No.
Hello.
she's like, it's nearly 6 o'clock. It's dinner time. So there we
Yes.
go.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think we'd fill an hour, but it's amazing once you start. It's like you're with this stuff, wind you up and just let you go.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you're good at that, aren't you?
Oh dear. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Drive Talk podcast. Don't forget, please hit the subscribe button. YouTube channel's growing at a good old rate of knots. Instagram and Facebook pages are growing. Oh look, I've got a plastic one. Look, yay!
Big thanks to Michelin.
Yeah, as always, as always. And then next week, although we've got some mega podcasts coming up soon. We've got a couple of face-to-face ones being filmed next week. One being filmed at a very famous garage.
Oh, I was going to say museum. That's probably
maybe.
giving it away now.
Yeah. Cheers. And the other being filmed in Sweden.
Yes.
We're going ice driving. Woo!
Yeah. That's. I'm looking forward to that. I really am.
Yeah.
That's nothing better. I know you've been recently, but you can't get enough of it.
I've got my shoes ready, so
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing them and taking the piss out of them.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ped.
Cheers.
Thanks, Patrick.
See you next time, people. Cheers.
Bye-bye.